Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Lesson of the Quran by the thinker of Quran, Allama Ahmad Parwez. Chapter 40, Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verses 185 to 188. My dear ones, today is April 20, 1969, and we begin a new series of Quranic lessons with Surah Al-Baqarah, starting from verse 185. Eid al-Fitr is in fact the celebration of the revelation of the Quran, an occasion which God Himself has commanded to be commemorated in the Quran. In the previous lesson, the last 2 or 3 verses dealt with the commands regarding fasting, and the same subject continues here. The Quran says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. The month of Ramadan is that in which the Quran was revealed, a guidance for mankind, containing clear proofs of guidance and the criterion to distinguish between truth and falsehood.
This Quran is the book that shows all of humanity the clear and elevated path to its ultimate destination, and it presents permanent standards to differentiate between right and wrong. Thus, the refresher course of training for the believers was aligned with the month in which the revelation of the Quran began. In this way, the remembrance of the great event of revelation was preserved by linking it with the preparation for jihad in the lives of the faithful. Later in Surah Yunus, it is said that receiving the Quran is a divine blessing, and believers are instructed to rejoice over this gift. That is why we have always described Eid al-Fitr as the festival of the Quran's revelation. In reality, Eid is the commemoration of the joy of the Quran's descent, a remembrance of that great blessing. Here the Quran declares, Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. Quran's greatness and its fundamental characteristics. The question arises, what is the Quran? It is the guide that leads the whole of humanity towards its ultimate destination. The verse says, Bayyinatin min al-Huda, 2:18-5. The path shown by the Quran is not vague, not complicated, but clear, distinct, and open. It is also described as Wal Furqani, 2:18-5, the criterion that separates truth from falsehood. The word Furqan means something that divides and distinguishes. Just as a line parting the hair separates each strand to the right and left, so does the Quran separate truth from falsehood. Furqan also refers to standards or measures by which things are evaluated. That is why in another place regarding the revelation of the Quran, it is said, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadri, 97:1. The word qadr itself means measure. Thus the Quran provides values, objective standards by which right and wrong can be measured. These values are new, universal, and external criteria for judgment. Therefore, the Quran is both huda, guidance, and furqan, criterion. It gives humanity a clear path and a precise measure to distinguish between truth and falsehood. The verse continues, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ, 2:85. As explained earlier, in Arabic, shahida means to be present at home, while ghaba means to be away on a journey. Thus, whoever among you is present at home during the month should fast in it. The pronoun ha in falyasum refers back to shahr, meaning he should fast in that month. Then it says, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. If anyone is sick or on a journey, then he should complete the count on other days. In this way, the Quran explains with clarity, fasting is for those who are present and healthy, while those who are sick or traveling are given the concession to complete the fasts later. This shows both the greatness of the Quran and the comprehensiveness of its guidance. The Quran does not issue any command that is impossible to act upon. The Quran makes it clear that its commands are never beyond human capacity. Regarding fasting, it has been said that for those who can only fast with hardship, there is a concession. The reason for this concession is explained in the verse, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ, 2:85. Allah desires ease for you and does not desire hardship for you.
He does not wish to entangle you in difficulties or impose restrictions that are impossible to fulfill. Therefore, the verse continues, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. 285. So that you may complete the prescribed number of fasts, glorify Allah for the guidance He has given you, and be grateful. As I mentioned earlier, the Quran refers to itself as kitab, a code of laws, but wherever it gives a law, it also provides the wisdom behind it, the rationale, the purpose, and the expected outcome. This explanatory aspect is called hikmah. In the case of fasting, the Quran not only prescribes the law, but also explains its objective, discipline, gratitude, and ease, never impossibility. Thus, the Quran's principle is that divine law is always within human capacity, accompanied by wisdom and purpose, ensuring that no command is ever impractical or unachievable. The outcome of Quranic guidance is always manifest in practical form. My dear brothers, as I mentioned earlier, the Quran first said, لَعَلَكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that within you may arise the ability to safeguard the laws of God. Then it says, وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, that through the guidance given in the Quran, you should establish the supremacy of God's system over all other systems in the world. Elsewhere, the Quran declares, لِيُزْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, we have sent this deen so that it may prevail over all man-made systems. This is the meaning of وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ, to manifest the greatness of Allah by making His system dominant. But this greatness must be raised, عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, through the guidance He has given you. The verse continues, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that your efforts may yield fruitful results. From this we understand the true purpose of fasting. It is to cultivate within the community the strength and discipline needed to establish God's system in the world, not only implementing it, but also demonstrating its superiority over all human-devised systems. Sexual relations during fasting and the teaching of the Quran. In the midst of the commands about fasting, the Quran introduces a very important clarification. After mentioning supplication in وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ 286, the next verse addresses the matter of marital relations. أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ عَلِمَ اللَّهُ أَنَّكُمْ كُنْتُمْ تَخْتَانُونَ أَنفُسَكُمْ فَتَابَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَعَفَى عَنْكُمْ فَالْآنَ بَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ ثُمَّ أَتِمُّوا الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ وَلَا تُبَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَقْرَبُوهَا كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ 287. It is declared that intimacy with one's spouse is permissible during the nights of fasting. The Quran uses the metaphor, they are a garment for you, and you are a garment for them, signifying closeness, dignity, and mutual comfort. Eating, drinking, and marital relations are allowed during the nights of Ramadan until dawn, but from dawn until sunset, abstinence from these is required. During i'tikaf in mosques, intimacy is prohibited. These are the boundaries of Allah which must not be transgressed. In many religious traditions, sexuality was treated as impure or shameful, and even the existence of women was considered a source of sin. Islam, however, dignifies both men and women equally as honorable human beings. It does not portray marital intimacy as vile or sinful. Instead, it recognizes it as the natural means of procreation and fulfillment of human needs. The Quran says, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ, family life, children, and the bond between husband and wife are adorned and attractive aspects of human existence. Looking at monastic life or the practices of other religions, one might think that fasting also prohibits marital intimacy. The Quran clarifies that this is not the case. During the nights of fasting, the relationship between husband and wife is not forbidden. Here, the Quran expresses a profound principle in a most beautiful and metaphorical way. Hunna libasun lakun wa antun libasun lahunna 2.187.
They are a garment for you, and you are a garment for them. The relationship between husband and wife is inseparable, like body and clothing. It is so close that no third element should come between them. Just as even a small hair caught between the body and the garment causes discomfort, so too any intrusion between husband and wife disturbs the harmony of their bond. Their relationship is one of complete unity, intimacy, and mutual comfort. This is a passing reference here, but later in Surah Al-Nisa, the Quran describes the marital bond in even greater depth, calling it a relationship of mawada, affection, and rahmah, mercy. There, the meaning of these verses will be explained further. Here, however, the Quran has already highlighted the closeness and sanctity of the marital bond in a strikingly beautiful manner. The Quran makes it clear that fasting is not monasticism. It is not meant to create aversion to natural human relations. Therefore, during the nights of Ramadan, when fasting is not in effect, everything within the boundaries set by the Quran is permissible.
The verse says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ. The common translation is that one may eat and drink until the white thread becomes distinct from the black thread. But this does not mean keeping two threads to compare. In Arabic, this expression refers to the dawn light appearing against the darkness of night. Just as we say the streak of morning, the Quran describes the first line of light at dawn as the white thread, which becomes distinct from the black thread of night. Until that time, eating and drinking is permitted. This is simply permission, not compulsion. It is not an obligation that one must eat at suhoor for the fast to be valid. If one wishes to eat, he may. If he does not, there is no restriction. The Quran does not impose compulsion in matters of eating and drinking. The verse continues, ثُمَّ أَتِمُّ الصِّيَامَ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ. Then complete the fast until nightfall. It further adds, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. When you are in the mosques for itikaf, intimacy with spouses is not permitted during that period.
The true concept of the mosque in Islamic teaching. My dear ones, the difficulty is that later generations defined Quranic terms through the lens of religion rather than deen, and from here the whole discussion went astray. The correct concept no longer entered the minds. The mosque in our time has been reduced to a mere place of prostration, where 5 daily prayers are performed and nothing more. But in deen, the mosque was never just a prayer hall. In Arabic, masjid means both the place of obedience and the center where matters of obedience are decided. Thus, your parliament in deen is a mosque, your administration secretariat is a mosque, your soldiers' training ground is a mosque, your courts are mosques. In the Prophet ﷺ's time, there was one central mosque for the entire community, Masjid al-Nabawi. During the era of the rightly guided caliphs, this same mosque in Medina functioned as the secretariat, the parliament, the Supreme Court, and the community center. Messengers and ambassadors came there, consultations and assemblies were held there, decisions of governance were made there. Even entertainment was part of its scope. Bukhari narrates that Abyssinians performed their dance in the courtyard of the mosque, witnessed by the Prophet ﷺ and observed by the mothers of the believers from their chambers. The mosque was thus comprehensive, encompassing every sphere of life under the laws of God. It was the central hub where all aspects of community life were organized, ensuring that every activity remained subordinate to divine law. When the concept of mosque was narrowed down to a mere prayer hall, all these dimensions were lost. What are now called worldly matters were originally integral to the mosque. In deen, the mosque was the center of life itself, not separate from it.
Today, we have limited the mosque only to prayer. Now, in our religion, the concept of the mosque is that speaking of worldly matters inside it is forbidden. There, only what we now call worship is performed, whose real meaning was to adopt obedience to God, but which has now turned into ritual devotion and worship. Worship became this, and the mosque became only a place for prayer. Millions of rupees are spent to build a structure whose only use is that in the morning 2 or 4 units of obligatory prayer are performed there. From morning until noon, the mosque remains empty, guarded only so that no dog enters. Then for 10 or 15 minutes, another prayer is performed, and again it remains unused.
In Pakistan, according to a careful estimate, there are about 80,000 to 100,000 mosques. Their only function is that 5 times a day people gather there for prayer. The rest of the time they remain completely idle and even require expenses for their protection. They are furnished with chandeliers, carpets, mats, and guards at the doors to prevent entry. Meanwhile, neighborhood children wander aimlessly, unable to find a place to study. Millions of children remain ignorant and idle simply because there are no primary schools available. What an arrangement it could have been. The buildings are already there. The time between morning and noon prayer is the school time, and it could have been adjusted. Children could pray there and then study. The imam, who is otherwise idle except for leading prayers, could teach. The muezzin, too, is idle, and even a guard is appointed unnecessarily. The establishment is present, the building is present, but religion's narrow concept stands in the way. Neither benefit is taken, nor are the children educated. Yet people are content thinking they are holding up the pillar of Islam. This is the concept of mosques today, and when the mosque is reduced to this, then the Quranic command, Akifuna fil masajid, 287, those who remain in the mosques for itikaf, is also understood only in this limited sense.
The Quranic concept of itikaf, as opposed to the religiously created notion. My dear brothers, you know that in the last 10 days of Ramadan, those considered very devout set up camp in the mosque. Except for necessary needs, they do not leave the mosque, sitting in a corner. This is pure monasticism, cutting oneself off from the affairs of the world. What do they do while sitting there? They say they are worshiping, turning prayer beads, then tiring and standing for extra prayers, then tiring again and returning to recitations. This routine continues day and night, and this is what has been named itikaf. But ask Dean what this truly was. The word comes from akaf, akafa, and its active participle is akaf, one who performs akaf. The literal meaning of akaf is to comb tangled hair until it becomes smooth and orderly, to resolve complex matters so that all confusions are removed, to set right what has gone wrong. Because this required focused attention and concentrated effort, its secondary meaning became to sit firmly in one place with full concentration so that attention is not diverted elsewhere. This is what itikaf meant. In the training month of Ramadan, there was a general program for all, but beyond that, there were important matters requiring collective consultation. This was intensive training. In every training, there are 2 sections. Soldiers train separately, generals sit separately. So it was said, the general training is for all, but those who are the decision makers, the responsible ones, must sit apart with full concentration to deliberate, to reflect, and to devise strategies for resolving the community's complex issues. This was the Quranic concept of itikaf.
My dear brothers, the question arises, where should this concentrated effort take place? The Quran says, in the mosques. These were the centers of the community, and this was called itikaf. It was the intensive part of the program. The extensive program was for everyone, but this concentrated section was known as itikaf. Those who sought an itikaf would not have the leisure to go home or engage in other matters. They spent the day with the soldiers in training, and when night brought some free time, they sought together to consult on important issues. In this way, both the general public and the thinkers and leaders had a complete program for the month. This is what is meant by Akifuna fil masajidi, 2:187. The same concept appears in Hajj, where the Quran mentions Akifin. When we reach Surah Al-Hajj, we will explain what is meant by Ta'ifin and Akifin. For now, it is enough to understand that this is the Quranic meaning of itikaf.
In contrast, the religiously created notion of itikaf is shaped by monastic tendencies. Those who had newly embraced Islam, influenced by the spirit of monasticism, felt an urge for seclusion. If such monasticism was not possible, then at least, they thought, let us sit in a corner of the mosque for 10 days in Ramadan. As the saying goes, Chor chor yon janda, hira peri o ne janda hega. The Quran says, Tilka hududullahi, fala taqrabuha, 287. What a profound statement this is. To explain the principle of hudud, limits, I often give the example of a football ground. There are boundary lines outside, and within the field certain lines are drawn. The team is instructed that these lines must not be crossed. Even stepping on them is considered a violation. Within these boundaries, every team has full freedom to make every possible effort through cooperation to bring the ball into the goal, but the condition is that they must not transgress the boundaries. The Quran says these are the limits that we have drawn, and it emphasizes this without ambiguity. In another place it says, Tilka hududullahi fala ta'taduha, 2:29. Do not transgress these limits. But here the emphasis is even stronger. Not only should you avoid crossing them, you should not even go near them. Fala taqrabuha, 287. The wisdom behind this emphasis is clear. If you go too close, excitement or impulse may push you one step further, even unconsciously, and that would be transgression. Therefore, the Quran commands, keep a distance from these limits, so that in no way, even unintentionally, your foot may cross beyond them.
The Quran never states its commands in an indefinite form. My dear brothers, the Quran says, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. In this way, Allah makes His commands clear for the people so that they may safeguard them. When commands are given, they must be presented in a clear and definite manner, leaving no ambiguity, no vagueness, but fully determined and illuminated. Yet among us it is often said that the Quran is a summary book, that it lacks detail, that it is ambiguous, that it contains things not clearly defined, and that to understand it one must rely on 18 different sciences. But the Quran calls itself Nur, light. It calls itself illumination. It calls itself the sun. And here people wander about searching for the sun with lamps. The Quran itself declares, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. We make our laws clear so that you may have no difficulty in safeguarding them, no ambiguity, no confusion. This is the claim of the one who authored the book. But some say, God forbid, that it is a difficult book, a vague book, and that no one can truly understand it. If anyone attempts to explain its meaning, they accuse him of audacity, saying, how dare a human claim to explain the book of God? The commands of fasting conclude here. Apparently, the Quran says that in ordinary days, those things which are lawful, permissible, and pure for you, during certain days you declare them unlawful upon yourselves, abstaining even from them. What a profound discipline this is.
The principle of lawful sustenance and the discipline of fasting. My dear brothers, was the prohibition only about food and drink? The Quran concludes this section with the verse, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Reflect on this. When you were trained to abstain even from things that are normally lawful and pure, the purpose was to teach that unlawful wealth must never be acquired under any circumstances. The Quran makes it clear, earning wealth is not wrong, just as eating and drinking outside Ramadan is perfectly lawful, but acquiring it through illegitimate means is forbidden. It says, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly. And further, وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِّنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Two methods are mentioned. One is to deceive others directly and consume their wealth unlawfully. The other is to bribe rulers and with their help devour the wealth of others unjustly. The Quran exposes both methods plainly. Now you understand the deeper meaning of fasting. The self-imposed restrictions were not merely about refraining from food and drink during the day and then compensating at night. The purpose was to train you to control your desires so firmly that whatever is declared unlawful remains unlawful in your eyes under all conditions, and you do not even approach it. My dear brothers, these are the commands of fasting as given by the Quran, and the Quran has presented them in one place with utmost clarity, even down to their details.
A misconception about attaining the nearness of God. My dear brothers, in the midst of the verses on fasting comes a very important verse. As in monastic traditions, it is said that to attain nearness to God, one must renounce food, drink, sleep, comforts, and adornments, making them forbidden upon oneself. Such exercises and hardships were considered necessary for divine proximity. One might think that perhaps through these restrictions, God's nearness is achieved. The Quran responds, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ
أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. Chapter 2, verse 186. With the discipline of fasting, this thought could arise, so it was clarified, God is not far away that you must undergo such hardships to reach him. When my servants ask you about me, say, فَإِنِّي قَرِيب, I am already near to them. Elsewhere, the Quran says, مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, nearer than the jugular vein. And وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ, wherever you are, he is with you. And فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. Thus, the one whose nearness is of this nature does not require ascetic exercises or hardships for proximity. He is near to every human being. The verse continues, أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, I respond to the call of every caller when he calls upon me.
The reality of the word dua and its acceptance with God. Here the Quran says, Da'wata da'i idha da'ani. This is the very expression from which the word dua has come into usage. This highlights its significance, and as I mentioned earlier, it is in itself a vast subject. It is a remarkable coincidence that last year, in 1968, when we began this new series of lessons in March, by April 28th, the same subject appeared while discussing Surah Al-Fatiha in the verse, وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. At that time, I explained the matter of dua in detail. A whole year has passed since then. Those who were present may not have the impressions as fresh in their minds now, and many others joined later. Therefore, I will not go into the same detailed explanation here as I did then, but it is necessary to point out the essence. If we translate ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'ani in our common language, it is usually rendered as, whenever someone makes a dua, I accept it. This is the general translation, but in reality, every dua is not accepted, nor can it be. The matter is simple. Imagine in the high court, Zayd and Bakr both have a case. Zayd prays to God that the decision be in his favor, and Bakr prays the same for himself. Can both prayers be accepted? Whose prayer will prevail? If we take the common notion, it would seem like an auction. One says he will offer 100 voluntary prayers if he wins. The other promises 1,000. One pledges 5 rupees in charity, the other 500. Does acceptance then depend on who bids higher? God forbid. This raises serious questions. One of them is not on the side of truth. Can his crying, pleading, vows, and rituals compel God to decide in his favor? If that were the case, then God would cease to be just, because the one who is not on the side of truth would still win simply due to his emotional appeals. Another question arises. If the one who is truly on the side of justice did not make dua, would the decision then go against him? If God were directly intervening in every verdict, then surely the decision would always be in favor of the one who is right, and never in favor of the one who is wrong. But in our courts, we see daily that wrong decisions do occur, due to human error or misjudgment. This shows that God does not interfere in such worldly verdicts in the way people imagine. Otherwise, every decision would automatically align with truth and justice.
The true meaning of dua. My dear brothers, the common understanding that dua means to ask is fundamentally mistaken. The word dua does not mean asking. It means to call out, to summon, to invoke. What is this calling? As long as you are walking on a straight path and you know it will lead you to your destination, you do not need to ask anyone. But when you reach a crossroads where the road divides into 2 directions, you must stop and inquire, which way leads to the destination? For example, if you are in Lahore and wish to go to Mazang, you must ask at the junction, which road should I take? So, O caravan of humanity, when you reach such crossroads in life, when you do not know which path is right, then you call upon us. We will answer your call, guiding you to the correct path that leads to your destination. This is the essence of dua. Not begging for favors, but calling upon God for guidance when faced with uncertainty. The Quran says, Ujibu dawata da'i idha da'ani. I respond to the call of the caller when he calls upon me. This is the assurance that whenever humanity reaches a point of confusion and calls upon God sincerely, he provides direction and clarity. The Quran responds to the calls of humanity. The question arises, where does the answer to this call come from?
The Quran itself provides the answer. God's book is so near that it is in your hands and it resides within your hearts. Whenever you face confusion, ambiguity, or uncertainty, when you reach a crossroads in life and do not know which direction to take, that is the moment of greatest perplexity for a human being. At such a point, one instinctively looks around for someone to ask, which way should I go? The Quran says, in such moments, do not depend on others, do not remain in anxiety or hesitation, do not call upon anyone else, call upon me. And when you call upon me, I will answer by showing you the right path. But God does not give direct verbal answers to ordinary human beings. The matter of the prophets is beyond our comprehension. Their connection with God was unique, and no one other than a prophet can truly understand it. After the finality of prophethood with Muhammad, peace be upon him, all human beings remain ordinary. For them, whenever they call upon God, the answer comes not directly, but through his book, the Quran. Where will this answer from God come from? It will come from his kalam, the Quran. God has already spoken, and when we read his word, it is as though he is speaking directly to us. Whenever a difficulty arises, whenever clarity is needed, whenever confusion clouds the way, the Quran provides the answer. It responds to every dua, to every call, immediately and directly, because it is near, not distant. Think of it as a guidebook kept in your pocket. Inside it is a map. At every crossroads in life, you do not need to ask anyone else. You simply open the guide, consult the map, read the signs and references, and continue your journey with confidence. All travelers of the world carry their guidebooks. Whenever they reach a junction and call out for direction, their guidebook itself responds, showing the way. Thus, the Quran is humanity's guidebook. It is not through hardships of hunger, thirst, or ascetic practices that one becomes closer to God. God is already near to every human being. Whenever a person calls upon him, he answers. The act of dua is this calling, and the Quran is the signpost that provides the answer. If you follow its guidance, you will surely reach the right destination.
Worship as journeying through life by the divine guidebook. The journey of life, when undertaken according to the guidebook granted by God, the Quran, is what is called ibadah, or worship. To follow this guide means to accept another's command, to submit to his authority, and to act in accordance with his directives. Notice how the Quran places dua and ibadah as synonymous in meaning. The confusion arises because of language. Dua in the Quran meant to call, to summon, but in our minds it became to ask. Thus we began to say, ask from God. Later, in our terminology, the two expressions were merged into dua mangna, to ask in prayer, and the original Quranic sense of calling upon God was lost, replaced with the notion of begging. We rarely pause to reflect on the words we utter. The Quran clarifies the true meaning. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ إِدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ 40:60. Your Lord says, call upon me, I will respond to your call. These are the same words echoed in Surah Al-Baqarah. Ujibu dawata da'i idha da'an 286. I respond to the call of the caller when he calls upon me. Thus, worship is not ritualistic begging, but living by the guidance of the Quran, calling upon God at life's crossroads, and then walking the path he shows. This is the essence of ibadah, aligning one's journey with the divine map.
The consequence of arrogance against divine guidance. The Quran declares, Ud'uni astajib lakum 40:60. Call upon me, I will respond to your call. Immediately after, it warns, Inna ladhina yastagbiruna an ibadati sayadkhuluna jahannama dakhirin 40:60. Indeed, those who show arrogance against my worship will enter hell in humiliation. Here, the Quran makes the meaning of calling upon God absolutely clear. It is not a separate ritual, but the very act of submitting to his guidance, accepting his authority, and refusing to show pride or rebellion against his commands. To call upon God means to live by his book, to acknowledge his sovereignty, and to walk the path he has laid down. The next question is, whose dua is accepted? The Quran itself answers, The word used is istajab, acceptance, responsiveness. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it says, Ujibu dawata da'i iba da'ani, 2186. I respond to the call of the caller when he calls upon me. And elsewhere, Wayestajibu the lidhina, 4226. He responds to those.
The first condition for the acceptance of dua. Dua is accepted. Now, the question is, whose dua is accepted? The Quran has made it clear. Alladhina amanu, 4226. Those who believe in the commands of God, and wa amilu salihati, 4226. Those who perform righteous deeds. Here, the word wayestajibu is used, meaning that the acceptance of dua is the inevitable result of faith and righteous deeds. What happens through faith and righteous deeds? The results of human actions are aligned with the laws of God. This is what is called the attainment of the objective, and this is what is meant by the acceptance of dua. The Quran itself has explained this. In one place, dua is made synonymous with worship, and in another, it is shown that the acceptance of dua is conditional upon faith and righteous deeds. If dua is only verbal, as we commonly practice, without righteous deeds, then what will its outcome? The Quran says, Lahu da'watul haq. Tur calling should be directed only to God, and every tangled matter should be resolved through His law. In contrast, وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ لَا يَسْتَجِيبُونَ لَهُمْ بِشَيْءٍ. Those who abandon God's law and seek constructive results through other laws, their efforts will be in vain. Without faith and righteous deeds, wherever you seek an answer, you are only pursuing your own desire, sitting idly and making verbal supplications. The Quran describes the natural human condition in dua. Every supplicant instinctively stretches out his hands because he wants to receive something. Unconsciously, the hands extend forward, and when the desire intensifies, both hands are raised together. This is the state that accompanies dua.
The result of asking God without righteous deeds. The Quran says that asking God without performing righteous deeds, merely raising hands and standing to ask, is like this. إِلَّا كَبَاسِطِي كَفَّيْهِ إِلَى الْمَاءِ لِيَبْلُغَ فَاهُ وَمَا هُوَ بِبَالِغِهِ. 13:14. Like one who stands at the edge of a river, stretching out his hands, thirsty, and saying, Come water, come water, come water. The Quran asks, will the water come to him? He is only standing with hands outstretched. This is such a vivid, graphic illustration. A man at the riverbank, hands extended, calling out for water to come. The Quran says, ask him, will the water reach his hands? The matter becomes clear. This is what dua truly means. God's response to the dua of Prophet Musa alayhis salam and Prophet Harun alayhis salam regarding Pharaoh. The Quran narrates a great moment of confrontation between Pharaoh, his chiefs, and his army, and the two great messengers of God, Musa and Harun alayhis salam. It says, وَقَالَ Musa رَبَّنَا 1088. Musa said, O our sustainer, لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ رَبَّنَا اطْمِسْ عَلَىٰ أَمْوَالِهِمْ وَاشْتِدْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ فَلَا يُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى يَرَوُا الْعَذَابَ الْأَلِيمِ. 1088. Destroy the wealth of Pharaoh and his forces, reduce their grandeur, which makes them rebellious against you, elevate our program, and take away the intellect with which they devise such inhuman schemes, for they will never believe until they see the grievous punishment with their own eyes. This is described as the dua of these two mighty prophets. The Quran then records God's direct response. قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا 1089. He said, the dua of both of you has been accepted.
Here we see the certainty of divine confirmation. Two prophets supplicate, and God himself responds directly, leaving no room for doubt. The acceptance of their dua is affirmed by God in clear words. The Quran says, قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا فَاسْتَقِيمَا. He said, the dua of both of you has been accepted, so stand firm. God told them, we have heard your dua and accepted it. Now remain steadfast upon your program. Do not let your feet slip. Show full perseverance. And in haste, do not follow the way of those who do not know. وَلَا تَتَّبِعَنِ سَبِيلَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Do not adopt the path of those who are unaware of our laws and their results, nor follow anyone who lacks knowledge and truth. Stay firmly on the straight path with consistency and determination, and your dua will be fulfilled.
Brothers, this is what is said regarding the dua of prophets, and this is how the result came about. In contrast, look at our own prayers. For 1,000 years, after every Friday prayer, after every Eid prayer, after every sermon, after every gathering, we have been praying, O Allah, destroy the enemies, demolish their settlements, create discord in their unity. We have been pleading and supplicating for centuries. This is the same dua that Musa and Harun alayhi salam made, but after their dua, they were told something. They acted upon it, and then they saw the result with their own eyes within days. The settlements destroyed, the grandeur reduced to dust, and their system elevated. Here, for 1,000 years, we have been making the same dua. What has happened? The part Fastaqima, 1089, stand firm. We have not read further. We stopped at the idea that merely asking in dua is enough to get the work done.
The first condition of dua, a right objective beyond rebellious desires. My dear brothers, the question is, what is dua? For the attainment of any purpose, several links are necessary. The first is that the objective must be correctly determined. This is essential because if a person follows his emotions, he often desires things that ultimately prove harmful. Wrong desires arise. Therefore, the first requirement is that the desire in the heart, the purpose one seeks, should not be dictated by emotions, but should be aligned with the law of God. One must set before his eyes an objective that God's law approves. This is the meaning of the Quranic verse whose misinterpretation has led us astray. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. You shall will only that which God wills. You must desire only what God wants you to desire in that situation. Thus, the very first condition is extraordinary. If you pray for something against God's law, there is no question of its acceptance. The first step is to align your desire, your dua, your purpose, your objective with what God's law requires. In these matters, Allama Iqbal, 1877-1938, went very far. Coincidentally, today is the 20th, and tomorrow, the 21st, marks his death anniversary. Though we could not hold a gathering this time, his words are worth recalling. With deep insight into the Quran and a natural gift of expression, he beautifully conveyed this truth. You should desire only that which is in harmony with God's law. He said, Teri dua hai ki ho teri arzu puri, mari dua hai teri arzu badal jaye. Zarbe Khaleen.
The importance of intensity of desire for the acceptance of dua. My dear brothers, the first stage of dua's acceptance has been explained. Now the question is, how does dua change? The Quran says, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Align your desires with the law of God. This is the first condition. The second is that once a desire is awakened, it must be intensified. When the purpose is right and the goal is true, strengthen the desire within your heart for its attainment. The more intense your desire becomes, the more special energies will be awakened within you. Courage will increase, and determination will rise. Through this intensity of desire, a transformation occurs within the human being. Remember, what is called calling upon God is in fact the intensification of a rightful desire. It is the height of longing. Allama Iqbal, 1877-1938, expressed this with the word ishq, a state of passionate devotion, even madness, for the fulfillment of one's true objective. This intensity of desire brings about a profound change within a person.
Through the passion of fulfilled desire, cosmic forces submit to man. Remember, dua does not bring something from outside for you. Rather, it transforms you from within. For this, Iqbal, 1877-1938, expressed it beautifully. Teri dua se qaza tu badal nahi sakti, magar hai isse ye mumkin ki tu badal jaye. Zarbe Khaleen. The essence lies in your own transformation. When you change, the entire external world changes with you. Main ab samjha ki duniya kuch nahi, duniya mera dil hai. बदल जाने से इसके रंग हर एक चीज का बदला. Create a change in your vision. Bring about a psychological transformation within yourself. The Quran states in Surah Ar-Ra'd, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. 13:11. Indeed, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. When a nation brings about inner psychological change, then external circumstances and conditions also change. Without this, they cannot. This transformation of mentality and psychology is what the Quran calls Iman. Faith means mentally accepting the value of permanent principles. My dear brothers, faith, Iman, is simply the transformation of mentality. It is not that whenever we say, Amintu billahi wa malaikatihi, it automatically becomes our faith. That is not the case. Faith changes values, transforms mentality, and alters the psychological state of a human being. This is what is called Iman. The second point is that through the intensity of desire, a transformation occurs within a person. From this transformation, the hidden powers within him, the concealed abilities, what you call potentialities, become actualized. They rise to the surface and manifest. At times of extreme danger, observe. When a biting dog barks and runs after you, the speed with which you run astonishes you afterwards. You wonder where this sudden speed came from. What is this? It is the sense of danger that awakened the desire for protection, and the intensity of that desire brought forth hidden powers that were lying dormant within you. They emerged and worked with such force that under normal circumstances you could not even imagine them. My dear brothers, this is the next stage. When desire becomes intense, those hidden powers come forth. The use of dua and the word adaiya among the Arabs and the meaning of gratitude. I often repeat, perhaps in every discourse, that the Arabs had a unique characteristic. They developed a language of remarkable depth. One wonders what kind of people they were, how far their vision extended. From the word dua, they had another term, adaiya. What did this mean? Consider the example of milking a cow or buffalo. Some animals, as people say, hold back their milk. The milk is there, but they do not let it flow. What the Arabs would do in such cases was to leave a small portion of milk in the udder instead of extracting it completely. That milk, already drawn forward from its source, had a natural tendency to flow out. When left inside, it would push against the milk behind it, causing the rest to move forward and flow out by itself. This small portion left behind, which acted as a stimulus to bring forth the hidden milk, they called adaiya. What an extraordinary people they were. They coined expressions for such subtle forces, triggers that draw out hidden energies and bring them into manifestation. The acceptance of dua depends on the structure of the social system, and from here comes their word dua. Now reflect on what dua truly means. First, the intensity of desire arises. Then, hidden energies come forth. After that, practical steps must be taken. Just as with the udder, once the milk has come forward, one must actually go and milk it. The whole process is prepared. At that point, the dua is accepted, because the hidden energies have advanced with their force. Now draw out the milk. This is what is meant by وَلَعَلَكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Do you know what shukr means? It refers to udders filled with milk, dripping with abundance. The Quran uses this imagery in the context of dua. When the right conditions are met, the udders fill again. The correct steps taken afterward are what you call amal salihah, righteous deeds. Faith, iman, is the determination of the right objective. Dua is the awakening of intense desire for its attainment, so that hidden energies rise to the surface and become active. Amal salihah are the proper and continuous actions taken to achieve that objective. This is fastaqima, to stand firm upon it with perseverance. Religion and personal relationship versus deen and collective system. This matter is not individual. It is only possible within a collective system, and this is a remarkable distinction. In religion, the relationship between man and God is entirely individual, an individual relationship, a private relationship between man and God. A person imagines his personal connection with God, Ram Prasadu in his own way, a mystic in his monastery,
a worshiper in the mosque, or someone at home spreading a prayer mat and holding a rosary. Each one establishes his own personal bond with God. This is the essence of religion, and it is here that man is deceived. He imagines that he has attained closeness to God. The sadhu before the idol of Krishna believes he has established a connection with God. The one bowing in the mosque believes the same. But there is no pragmatic test, no standard by which it can be verified whether this connection truly exists or not. In Deen, however, this kind of personal relationship does not exist. Deen does not present the concept of a personal God, a God imagined in anthropomorphic or individual terms. Instead, Deen presents a universal law. This law governs humanity, and our relationship with God is through adherence to this law. By following this law, tangible results appear before us in this very life, and this system is collective, not individual.
All du'as in the Quran are in the plural form. Brothers, for this collective aspect, the Quran has declared, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen, i.e., O you who believe, be mindful of God and join the company of the truthful. This cannot be achieved individually. It requires joining the group of those who are true. Observe that in the Quran, all du'as appear in the plural form, beginning with the very first supplication, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, i.e., guide us to the straight path. From the start, the collective pronoun is used. Throughout the Quran, the word Rabbana, our Lord, is repeated. A prophet may say, my Lord, in his personal capacity, but for the believers, the Quran always uses our Lord. Even the prophet, when he steps down from the station of prophethood to stand as a member of the community of believers, joins them in saying, Rabbana. At that moment, he declares, Wa ana awwal al-muslimin, i.e., I am the foremost among those who submit. Thus, the Quran has deliberately given all du'as in the plural form, emphasizing their collective nature.
The absence of Quranic governance in the world today. Today, across the world, all governments in Muslim lands exist, but nowhere is there an Islamic or Quranic government. The practice of Deen can only be realized within a collective system, not individually, and such a collective system can only function within a free state, not under subjugation. The meaning of having one's own state is not that by registering Muslim names in a census, the state automatically becomes divine. Rather, it is a state where the laws of God are practically implemented and enforced. The results of this implementation appear in this very life, in this very world, in the tangible form of universal human welfare. After death, such a nation and its individuals become capable of advancing to the next stages of life's evolution. At every crossroads of life, when decisions must be made, their call is, which direction should we take? What path should we follow? At that moment, they call upon the law of God, and since he has declared, وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا, the word of your Lord has been perfected in truth and justice. This complete code of life answers every call. For all matters of collective human life, the Quran provides guidance. That is why it claims that every caller's call will be answered. From there, the objective or destination is determined. Then within you arises the intensity of desire, even a passion for its attainment. This brings about a psychological transformation within you. Collectively, you must take steps, and the destination will manifest before you. This is why the Quran has said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. When my servants ask you about me, indeed I am near. I respond to the call of the caller when he calls upon me. For the acceptance of dua, man must first respond to God's call. The Quran says, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, 286. Let them respond to me. If they want their duas to be accepted, this is the way. Earlier it was said, Ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'ani, 286. I respond to the call of the caller when he calls upon me. Here it is clarified, if you want your call answered, you must first answer God's call. This is a profound exchange, give and take. Accept God's word and your word will be accepted. To have your plea heard by God, you must first heed his command. When his command is obeyed, your request is already fulfilled. This is how one becomes mustajab al-da'wat, one whose prayers are answered. The Quran explains the condition, Ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'ani.
I answer the call of every caller, provided that فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, they respond to me. And how is this response given? The verse continues, وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, let them believe in me, meaning let them have faith in the truth of my laws. For what purpose? لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that they may be rightly guided. Thus, dua is a reciprocal relationship. Man calls upon God, and God answers, but only when man first answers God's call, believes in his laws, and walks upon the straight path. The Quranic meaning of murshid. My dear brothers, do you seek a murshid guide for this? The word comes directly from the Quran, Yarshudun, 286. From this root comes murshid and irshad, one who gives light, guidance. This is the method the Quran itself has explained. But what happens in practice? Instead of aligning our desires and actions with God's laws, we first set out searching for a murshid, a spiritual master, and then follow whatever he says, even if it is not in harmony with divine law. The Quran, however, makes it clear, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, 286, so that they may be rightly guided. This is the true murshid for you. The Quran has already distinguished between guidance and misguidance. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ, 256. Indeed, guidance has become distinct from error. The word rushd here means that path whose soundness and wisdom can be verified by intellect and reason. That is why the age of maturity is called sin el-rushd, the age when human intellect and reasoning become firm. The Quran has clarified this principle. If you want your du'as to be accepted, then فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, 286. Let them respond to me. Believe in the firmness of God's laws, and that is your true murshid. There is no murshid other than God in the world of humanity. The Quran says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that they may be rightly guided. This is the method by which the straight path of life becomes clear, manifest, and evident before you. And this is what people call murshid. Brothers, there is no murshid other than God. The true path is only that which He has shown, preserved within the pages of the Quran. Dua is not merely verbal supplication. Rather, at every crossroads of life, whenever you face doubt or cannot distinguish between right and wrong, call upon the law of God. The law of God, safeguarded in the Quran, will answer your call. When you act according to it, your du'as will be accepted. Beyond this, there is no other meaning of du'a, nor any other method of its acceptance according to the Quran. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Our Lord, accept from us. Indeed, you are the all-hearing, the all-knowing.